Alright, and this is match number 4, I believe, game 1 of the San Rafael Regional Tournament in Northern California. On the right, you see me playing The World's Yours, and on the left, my opponent is playing Kate. So, yeah, here we go. Just deciding whether we want to keep, and I can see in my opponent's hand, I saw a self-modifying code. I wasn't able to catch anything else. Can't really see what's in my hand either, unfortunately, but alright. So we'll go here. So first click is going to be a green level, so I gain some money, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be too ideal. I'd like to start with a hedge fund, but icing over R&D, and last click I will, let's see, thinking here. So I must not have another ice, which definitely isn't good. I guess I was hoping to draw into one between the green level and my mandatory draw, but that really didn't happen. So I leave HQ open here against Shaper because I don't usually expect Siphon or too much punishment. I'm more worried about indexing, as you saw in the last video. That can be really, really devastating, and it's always scary. But okay, so his first click installs a Nerve Agent. That's a really good splash and really unexpected. And he immediately is trying to hit my hand and make sure I'm not hiding anything there, which is a great play. You don't usually see that. For some reason, people tend to, although the hand is the target for NBN, they don't hit it like this with a lot of multiple access cards. So you're seeing like the Biotic and the Quandary and the Sweeps Week. So I have a lot of cards in my hand to try and take advantage of it. I'm actually really not sure. I must have drawn that Quandary on my last click when I drew last turn, because or else I would have installed that over HQ instantly. So he sees the NAPD and doesn't have the money to trash it because of the Nerve Agent. So, okay. He caught the Astroscript on the last access, or else I could have Biotic that out, and I probably would have, to be honest here, just because I needed something and I couldn't let him keep hitting me with that Nerve Agent. And I ice up, and that's going to be a Quandary over HQ. Just that's the only ice I have in my hand, and sweeps up. So I'm in a bad position here. I don't have, even though he doesn't have a lot out, that Nerve Agent first turn was really, really strong and gave him a really good idea of what to expect for the rest of the game, or at least for the foreseeable future, since he saw all of those cards. I decide not to. He lets me take it back, which is nice. So I decide to risk the Quandary instead, and the reason for that was just to make him get rid of that self-modifying code and search his deck for something. So he gets the Parasite, which tells me a lot about his deck. If he's going and getting that Parasite right off the bat, most likely this is going to be a Parasite recursion style build, and splashing a lot of Anarch, because that Nerve Agent's a really big include as well outside of faction. So I'm expecting to see a lot of Anarch, and I'm going to try and do something about that. So yeah, he gets, wow, 2 more agendas, and I'm just flooded at this point. You've seen 4 agendas so far, and it's my 3rd turn now. So this isn't turning up to be too good of a game for me, but it is what it is, I guess. And we'll ice up HQ after drawing some, so plenty of money, but not much in the way of defense. And let me see here. So I'll decide to res the Rototurret, which I probably shouldn't have done here. I think this was a mistake. There was just the NAPD in my hand, and he doesn't have the money to steal it, so it was kind of a waste of a Rototurret. Like, sure, I got rid of the Nerve Agent, but it didn't do anything else for me. It wasn't a breaker, and now he can just recur that Parasite later, or fetch a new one, or have one in his hand and see another one. So yeah, there's another NAPD. Great. So he can easily destroy that Rototurret, and it doesn't really hinder him too much. You know, another self-modifying code would change that up a little bit, and he could do it instantly and not lose anything. but we've seen one already. So I'm drawing up here and icing over R&D and spending a credit and taking a credit for my last click. So, okay, and there's that clone chip, and he clone chip and took credits, so he has a way to recur that parasite already. So HQ is no longer safe, and I'm playing Jackson and drawing up, trying to get rid of this flood of agendas that I have, or that I've seen so far, and really trying to get that broken up a little bit. And this isn't where NBN wants to be. I'm on my back foot, even though he hasn't. Well, he did. He scored 1 Astro script, so I have 2 left in the deck. But I'm still. I cannot let him steal anything, and that's a big problem. And yeah, he's hitting my hand because it's a good. Well, I did discard down, so most likely I don't have the NAPDs still in my hand. But he's trying to hit there anyway, because if he gets it, he wins the game. And that would just be really bad, as you can imagine. Let's see, like I see an R&D interface and a parasite in his hand too, or not parasite, a data sucker. So I think the right play for him would have been to play that data sucker to get counters, but he's just looking for the win, and he must have thought I just didn't discard down with at the end of my turn, didn't discard those NAPDs. And yeah, here we go, just trying to draw past it. Draw through the agenda flood. And installing over HQ. And I have to discard a bunch of cards here, but it's tough. I don't have a lot of money, and nothing is res, so I have no protection anywhere. And he's still running with no rig. There's nothing in play, no programs, hardware, or anything. Which is pretty tough. And it's taking me a little while here. I did draw 6 cards, or 4 cards, or 5 including the mandatory draw, and I had 6 to begin with. So I have to pick quite a few to discard down from. And I'm sure I'm discarding mostly agendas at this point. I usually don't like to draw that hard with Jackson, because I'd prefer to use him to kind of thin out my deck as the game goes on, but in this case I didn't get that luxury, unfortunately. And yeah, here's the data sucker, and trying to make me use that Jackson, which I just have to do. So I've discarded a Chimera and a Sansan. The Chimera just wasn't worth hanging on to at this point. I've seen enough parasites that either I'm going to be paying 2 to keep him out, or I'm going to pay 2 and he's just going to blow it up. And I'm not in a situation where the Chimera is overly useful. So just letting that sit. And I left the Sansan discarded because I had to shuffle back in 3 agendas. I didn't have a choice there. Just kind of trying to recover still. He's going to go for R&D. So just checking what I have. And I saw a wraparound up front. And I'll res that. So it keeps him out for the moment, but as you know, Shapers are probably going to be packing an Inti, especially an Ice Destruction like this. If nothing else, Inti is worthwhile just to get Wraparound down to 0 strength, which makes it a worthwhile include in pretty much anything. You see Wraparound in so many decks now, even out of faction, that it's just good to play a Fractor, whether it be Corroder or Inti or even Battering Ram. is better than just not having one and having a wraparound at 7 strength. So I gain a credit in Hedge Fund and try and get money to res that ice and keep him out. If I can get myself fortified here, I'll be in a pretty good spot. Or at least I'll be in a not awful spot. Even though he has tons of points on me, I'm going to try and make a comeback here and see if I can make that happen. So icing Archives to get rid of this sucker, or not get rid of it, but to help protect against the data sucker. And he runs HQ, and I'll res that Eli to keep him out. Or, he can click through it and waste his time, but he's been hitting every server as much as he can. So it's worthwhile to have something rezzed everywhere. Even if it's something he can click through, that's slowing him down at least a little bit. And gaining money. Still, you can see a little bit more in this game as opposed to the last one, hitting everywhere more as opposed to trying to focus down on something. And it puts me in a harder spot because now I need to spend clicks to install stuff, I need to spend clicks to get money, I need to spend clicks to draw, and all of that money just goes to waste as soon as he starts running on things again, which I guess you could also chalk up to the parasite recursion deck. They want you to run, or they want you to res your ice so they can target it down with the parasites. But my opponent here is doing a particularly good job in installing that card and immediately runs it. So again, another roto turret, and just to blow that up. And I think here I was trying to sneak out an agenda and just hoping he didn't have an answer. But yeah, Shapers will do that to you. Test run, Parasite, blows it up. And he's going to run on that afterwards. I just remember that from this game.
No, you must have run. No, I just test run. Oh, you haven't. Right. I'm sorry. I test ran. Yes.
And we're trying to figure out the what's going on here because he ran and test, or didn't run but test run, and it was just kind of confusing. So I tried to sneak that breaking news out, and my mindset at the time was to get him to waste a recur, or waste a breaker, or waste a trick to get it. But in hindsight, I really think I should have scored that out, especially since I'm sitting on 10 credits. Scoring out a breaking news would at least make it so I only needed 6 points to win, which doesn't sound like a big deal here, but the difference is scoring 4 2-pointers or 3 2-pointers, because he now has both of those breaking news. So that's, even though it doesn't sound like a lot, it's a pretty big difference in this style deck. And I will fast track the Astro script. And for some, my overlay shows 3. That's not true. I don't have any points right now. But I'll fast track the Astro script. So I'm banking on him not being able to get in. And I'm probably going to try and biotic that. He's seen that enough, and it's been exposed enough. But if I can start to get that Astro script rolling, then I have a shot. But otherwise, if he steals it, he wins. So needs something to try and slow down, and he's not even going to try and just let me spend out. And I'm taking a look to see what he can same old thing, which is probably I know he's played test run, so he can always get a parasite back immediately, or get something else, I suppose. And yeah, here bioticking out that Astro script. Get some points on the board, so I'm not totally shut out. But again, I can't overstate how much that breaking news play before was a misplay. If I had gotten that, I'd be at 3 points, and then I could chain another Astro script and be at 5, or I could, score be at 5. It would have opened it up a lot more and given me a lot more options on how to actually close out the game. And you can see his hand, he has 2 test runs, and which is scary. He plays a sharpshooter even though he's seen and already destroyed 2 roto turrets, and I top decked the Astro script. So I'm back in the game. If nothing else, then by at least as far as points are concerned. And he's still just hunting for 1, and he doesn't really have too much of a board position without any breakers or any real breakers. That sharpshooter is pretty much worthless for him at this point. He's destroyed both of my roto turrets, so I don't have any other destroyer in the deck, but he doesn't know that, and I'll let him continue to be worried about it for the rest of the game and try and play around it. And so he happened to draw that parasite. His deck is just giving him all the answers, really. And he's looking at his hand, what I didn't know at the time is he's definitely in a very, very strong position. I see some RDIs, so he has multi-access, he has a parasite on the wraparound, and he has those test runs, so he can just test run out the inti and instantly destroy the wraparound. Well, he could have same old thing the inti either way, but still, that's 2 clicks and the same old thing use as opposed to just using a test run out of hand to get the NT. And here it comes, I'm sure of it. Yep. So the wraparound strength goes from 7 to 0, and it then has -1 strength, which triggers parasite, and the wraparound gets destroyed. So I have a pretty thinly protected game at this point. Just one thing in front of R&D and archives, and he has a lot of answers. So he has the test run in hand, which, well, he has a test run in hand and then another test run in play with that same old thing. So he can get through a lot of things, or at least he can, you know, trigger and sneak into a lot of things where I wasn't expecting him to be able to get to, even though I could have assumed it. So he runs on R&D and I don't res that ice. So I don't think I have the money for it. I feel like that's probably a toll booth, but I'm not certain on that.
How many parasites are in archives? One. No, 2. Sorry. Mandatory draw.
Oh, and here's a mistake actually. That inti should have gone back to the top of the deck. Yeah, he test ran that inti, so it should have gone back, but neither of us seemed to catch it. And this, unlike some of the other regionals, this one didn't start too late. I think we actually started at 10 a.m. in the morning, or 10 in the morning, so it wasn't, at this point, I think it was like 2 or 3, so it wasn't too late, but it was still a lot of hours of Netrunner that passed, and it is a super taxing game, so it's things are forgotten, tend to be forgotten, unfortunately. But what are we going to do? Just live with it. And he plays one of those RDIs, the R&D interfaces that are in his hand. And I'm not sure what I'm checking. I think I have a Jackson in play, and I'm thinking about reducing the agenda density and shuffling back in. Oh, okay. So I play the Chimera. So that wasn't a toll booth as I had thought originally, and I res the Chimera. And that de-reses at the end of the turn. But it's a concern here. I can't afford to keep resing that Chimera, and it puts me in a pretty unfortunate circumstance. Either I install over it or trash it. If I install over it, it costs me money and I probably won't have enough money to actually res. Or if I leave it, he just gets a free run and makes me pay 2. So 1 click to make the corp lose 2 is worth it every single time, especially when it poses no danger to the runner. And I'm just resing that Chimera again just to kind of keep him out for the moment, or at least force him to use a parasite. So you could same old thing, the parasite to blow up the Chimera, but you can tell he's perfectly happy with my just having to continuously res that, which is a good move. I would be happy if my opponent did that too. Just gaining three credits. And the constant pressure is really hard to deal with, especially when I don't really have a good answer to anything. And his early game was strong enough to completely mess mine up that I'm struggling to recover from it. And I use that Jackson to shuffle in 3 economy cards, I think. But either way, I shuffle in 3 cards that aren't agendas just to thin out my deck a little bit more and try and slow it down, or at least lessen the likelihood that he just gets an agenda off the top of the deck. And one of those things, interestingly enough, was a roto turret, which isn't another. I feel like that's another misplay on my part, because the roto turret would just be gone right through with the sharpshooter. And while 4 isn't usually a lot for me, in this particular instance, it is. That's a lot of money to res something that is not necessary and will just get walked through or easily destroyed. Neither of those scenarios are too good for me. And I'm not sure if it is in my hand, but I'm pretty sure one of those draws that I've been getting where he hasn't seen it has been a Beal. So again, if I had scored that breaking news earlier in the game instead of using it as kind of like a trappy ambush type deal, then I could have just scored out the making news, or scored out the Beal at this point and won the game. Lesson learned, I guess. There isn't much else I can do at this point other than try and make up for it. But even still, I don't have any other Astro scripts. They're all 3 are on the table, so I can't Astro train out the 3rd one and then train out something else. At this point, I have to score 2 more 3-for-2s. And that ice that I put over the Chimera was the toll booth, so I'll res that, and it'll keep him out. That's probably the best lock I have on any server right now. He doesn't really have any way to get past it. This turn, anyway. But slowing him down a hair. So he runs on Archives, and I res that just to make him pay, just for a little bit of a tax for the sucker token. Again, this probably wasn't a good play. I think I'm just trying to make something happen, and I'm starting to get a little concerned at this point that he's just going to be able to roll over me once he gets enough parasite counters and blow up that toll booth. Because I know he can test run. So test run the parasite onto the toll booth when he has 5 sucker counters means that I don't have a toll booth anymore. It's a pretty big concern. And I just gained 3 credits to try and get money. I think at this point I'm trying to get money. That face down card's a Sansan. At least I think it has to be. So I'm trying to get money to res the Sansan and fast advance the Beal that's in my hand. So that way I can use the AstroScript token that's on the table to win if I see another agenda later. Which probably was the right move. That's the right intention at any rate, but I don't think I'm doing it in the right way. The resing the wraparound just kind of set me back a little bit and put me at 5 credits ultimately, which isn't terribly useful for me. I guess if I have a hedge fund in hand, I can try and recover a little bit, which would then in turn let me try and get that Beal out. But ultimately, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. In hindsight, another play. Okay, so he test runs the Eli or the parasite onto the Eli, and in hindsight, I think I want to siphon. And yeah, that's gonna hurt quite a bit. Blows up the Eli, and I'm now down to nothing, so definitely not good. And in hindsight, I think my best ultimately my best option would have been to forego fast advancing and try and put a Beal behind a Chimera and over advance it. That would take me, well, I would need 5 advancements, so I'd have to install advance, and then next turn I could advance, and use the Astro token. That's definitely not going through my mind. At this point, I can tell I'm not trying to establish a remote, but the Chimera, and I actually probably could have bluffed that out well enough, because he knows I play NAPD, and he's seen NAPD. So if I had an ice there and just installed an advanced, he would probably assume that's what it was, but I don't know if he would have let me have it. Well, there you go. So he runs through HQ and steals that last NAPD. So none of it matters, but there we go. This is actually my only corp loss of the tournament, and very well done. He played his hand really, really well, and I didn't make the right choices, but it was a good game. So thank you for watching, and I should have game 2 up shortly.